what can't decay. No, feel the fury inside, try to bury my pride, but I'll run for grave. Become my blade once more. Carrying a cross and the hilt's already fading. Leather in my grip, I never miss my swing. River running red from the dead, escaping. Heaven or hell, take the land between. And I bear this weight that I'm under, and no force could tempt a kneel. I bend for honor only, no this seal is not real. This shattered will define a spirit burning and honest. My demons paralyzed, terrified. They branded sacrifice, so tarnished early and often. My fury justified. Sealed up my fate and read the embers of scarlet taste. My blade remembers. Semper my crown, yeah. I wield what can't decay. No, feel the fury inside, try to bury my pride, but I'll run for grave. My skin to stone, my flesh to onyx. This gravity is daunting. The poison breath, this blind of death cannot infect my conscience. Cause I've been here before, bloodstained rooms on altar doors. And I wish I was more, but I jail my doubts and Aaron's Lord, yeah. This shattered will define a spirit burning and honest. My demons paralyzed, terrified. They branded sacrifice, so tarnished early and often. My fury justified. I decide. Sealed up my fate and read the embers of scarlet taste. My blade remembers.
And we are live. Wow, we got a whole new setup and everything. It feels so much more roomy in here. Oh my goodness. I mean, technically, this is the first TNA review because we didn't have one last week due to the CMLL watch along. So now, unfortunately, we're back to a duo for now, but not for long. So, hi, Will. I've missed the TNA review. I'm happy we're back with this. But hi, all you BC, hi, all you BC WrestlePod nerds out there, and welcome to the 2.0 question mark version of the Takedown Troupe review, your weekly TNA wrestling review. I am one of your hosts, Mikey. Joining me is my lovely co-host, and we're back to the duo that kind of started it off for a little bit. I have my other co-host, Papa also himself, Will. I am super happy to have you here to talk about a very interesting episode of TNA Wrestling.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, as always.
Of course, my right-hand man, I'm not going to lie, this man helps me and keeps me tethered in so many ways. Oh, my goodness. But we are here to review this week's episode of TNA Wrestling taking place on Thursday, September 19th, 2024. And all roads lead to Bound for Glory. We are 5 weeks out, and I appreciate the commentary team for telling us how long we have until Bound for Glory. But we are 5 weeks out, Jiminy H. Christmas. Well, we are almost 5 weeks out from the final Big Four pay-per-view for TNA of the year. Holy crap, what a year has been for TNA Wrestling.
Yeah. Indeed.
Oh my goodness. I am super excited. I cannot wait for Bound for Glory. We're going to talk a lot about our speculations based on what we saw tonight, but we got an episode to review, so let us dive straight in. After we get a video package of TNA Victory Road, which was literally like last week, which is kind of nuts to think about. And thanks to our lovely commentators of Tom Hannafan and Matthew, the Drama King Raywald, opens up the broadcast, welcoming the audience to our opening segment, which was, do you want to know something? You know what? I love that Alicia Edwards is using this as like her bit and she's sticking with it. I love it. It is so annoying, but like in the best way possible. But yeah, Alicia Edwards, is on the mic, comes down from the rap. Do you want to know something? And she basically says that Masha is the main reason that she is no longer a tag champ, that it is Masha's fault. I'm like, ma'am, did we watch the same thing go down at Victory Road as you did? Because last I checked, it was a tag team match, so it was not Masha's fault. It was also Tasha Steelz' fault. But you want to hate on Masha? All right, fine, girl. And so Alicia says that she is not going to be disrespected by Masha Slamovich, which then prompts Miss Slamovich to interrupt with her music. And she comes down to the ring. Alicia reads her the riot act, tells her, what am I saying? You don't understand a thing I'm saying. Masha grabs the microphone out of Alicia Edwards' hand, begins to say a phrase or two in Russian, and then the biggest plot twist in TNA wrestling history has happened. Masha Slamovich speaks back to Alicia in English, not broken English, perfect. I was born in this country and I learned the English language. Like, it is fluent. It is very, I don't want to say Americanized because America didn't found English because it was just crazy, but homegirl speaketh the English. And I was like, this is the biggest plot twist of TNA wrestling history, which is super fantastic. And you know what? Good job on TNA and for Masha for the last year and a half, 2 years. We have heard nothing but Russian from Masha since she debuted in this company, and she can speak English.
So crazy.
This is the biggest plot twist of anything that I have watched in 2024 this year. It's crazy.
It was so wild because I figured something was getting set up. I was like, oh, this is going to be a setup. What is this? Okay. And so I assumed it was probably bad on my part. I just assumed that it was going to be like that stereotypical broken Russian English. And boy, it's just like perfect English. And I was just like, how in the world did we not know that she could speak like perfect English like that? I mean, I feel like an idiot. Because I was I feel like I should have known that.
But again, I'm actually kind of glad that I was like, wow, I was not expecting that. It was like, I have been fooled. Good job, TNA Wrestling, because it's really hard to fool me since we started doing this wrestling review. It's really hard to fool us. But shout out to Masha and TNA Wrestling for keeping that under wraps. So I'm like, now I'm looking back at everything that Masha has done since she's been in this company. I'm like, this is fantastic. I love this. This is so good. But Masha begins to speak in English, and she basically is like the face in all this. And she tells Alicia that her and the whole entire TNA audience is sick of her talking and hearing her voice, which then prompts Tasha to try to jump Masha. So then it's a 2-on-1 situation, and then Ms. Jordan Grace comes in for the save. Then the boys of the system of Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers come out to make it a 4-on-2. Honestly, let's be real. Masha and Jordan probably could have manhandled everyone in that ring. But then the Hardys come out to even the odds, which then prompts not only Santino, but the NXT liaison of Ariana Grace to come in to let us know a couple of things. That in our main event, tonight, it's going to be Masha Slamovich and the Hardys taking on the System and Tasha Steele. So I'm like, okay, this should be a lot of fun. But then Ariana Grace tells Jordan that next week, Jordan and a mystery tag team partner from NXT will battle Rosemary and Wendy Chu in a tag team match. So I told Andrew this when we did our Victory Road review, because based on what happened in NXT for the last couple weeks, I think I know who her partner is going to be, and it has me excited. So I am super excited. I'm not going to spoil anything, but if anyone saw Jordan's match prior to Victory Road from this week ago in NXT, you'll know who her opponent was, which I think is going to be her tag team partner. And as I asked Will this question, I'm going to type it to him in the private chat. So Will, this was a very interesting opening segment. So first of all, we already talked about oh my gosh, Masha speaks English, but how do we feel about this setting up our main event? And what do you think of the tag team match being set up for Jordan next week?
Well, first of all, anytime the System is on my screen, it drives me insane. So when Alicia Edwards is coming out with, sorry, you're gonna hear the sink going because I'm right here by the kitchen. Anytime that Alicia Edwards or any of the System come out and speak, it irritates me so much. But then the Masha speaking English, I was just like, what? Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Gotta love the private chat.
Yeah. And then I love how Masha turned the tables on Alicia when she started speaking English, and she's like, I have heard everything you said, and I'm sick and tired of hearing your voice, basically. I was just like, I loved her so much. And then all that happened, and then of course Tasha Steele comes in, and then blah 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 blah, all that craziness, and it was just, and then we get the. Did you talk about the backstage part afterwards already? I'm sorry. Okay, cool. I don't want to go there if you hadn't talked about it yet, but because I have some things to say about that too. But I love the setup of this. How this was gonna. Just everybody come rushing in, and I was like, rushing. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I was like, okay, there's Jordan Grace. Okay, that's cool. And then the Hardys came in. Of course, the rest of the System, except for Moose, comes in, and JDC. But I was like, oh, this is interesting. This feels like we're about to get something. And then, of course, sure enough, that's what we got. And I was like, okay, I'm here for this. I am here for this. So when Santino came out and was all, hey, I was like, okay, all right, this is gonna be badass. This is gonna be awesome. So yeah, and then of course with Jordan, she's like, what about me? And I was like, and then of course Ariana Grace, who I love, comes out, and it's so great to see the two of them doing stuff together. It is so fun.
Me and Andrew popped so hard. I mean, you watched Victory Road too. Yeah. So seeing Santino and Ariana on screen together at Victory Road in that backstage segment before our main event was just so fun. Me and Andrew loved it so much, and I'm like, damn, we wish Will was here, because we've been putting this into the universe that we want to see those two come on screen together at some capacity. Now that they have, I'm like, this is everything I want. Honestly, these are probably my favorite on-screen personalities stories right now ever. Individually, they're great, and now that the father-daughter duo is together, it makes me super excited.
Great. It's so neat. So this was a great build. I thought it built really well.
Oh my goodness, I love this. This is a fun opening segment, which then leads us into our next two segments, which are all backstage. First and foremost, we see Josh Alexander, who is kind of like fuming a little bit and, realizing he lost to probably the hottest wrestler right now in TNA right now in Joe Hendry at Victory Road. And he is confronted by Eric Young. And Eric tells Josh that he understands where Josh, he understands where Josh is coming from because he was there, but he reminded Josh that there's a lot of people in this locker room who look up to you and you need to take, and it's time for you to take this seriously, which I'm like, okay, I like the advice, but does that mean that Josh is not going to be a heel anymore? I'm like, that was quick. I was like, but who knows? It might be a ploy. It could be a whole bait and switch and then we're going to pull in our leg. I'm just like, I really hope it does not mean we get face Josh. I love you face Josh, but I feel there's untapped potential still with heel Josh Alexander.
I think it's all a ruse. I really do. I think he's like, he's right. I can get more if I'm nice to people than I can if I'm not nice to people. So he's taken the charismatic bad guy role now. And he comes up to, he does this thing later on, which we'll talk about. And I was just like, there it is right there. I bet you anything. That's what that is. That's what that is. So I'm really kind of hoping it's not a sudden shift. Like, oh, I lost sight for a second. Now I'm back. I kind of hope it is kind of a fun, like, I want to see his journey coming back to turn back. I wanted to see it as a journey and not just a flip a switch. Because he hasn't been a heel that long. So it's like, come on, let him have some fun. Let's, and now it may be TNA. Maybe TNA is like, we really need you as sort of like the face of TNA or whatever, because you always have been. Everyone, when they think of TNA, they think of Josh Alexander, yada, yada, yada. And so maybe, but I really kind of hope it's not that. I really do. I really hope they give him a journey to get back where he was. He needs to go through some stuff.
I think we will. I hope it's a ruse because I think it would be so interesting, but only time will tell. Then we get another, we go to commercial. We come back. We're backstage once again where we see Masha Slamovich in a really bitchin', excuse my French, like handkerchief, like halter tot situation. I was like, yes, girl. Look, I'm a fashion person. I love me some good fashion. It was fantastic. But Masha is walking down the hallway and Jordan Grace kind of intersects her from stage left on my screen. And she's like, hey, so Masha, I've had all these open challenges for this championship, and you have not answered a single one. And Masha's like, oh, don't worry. I will come back and we will fight again for that title, but I got some business to take care of first. So I was just like clapping gleefully on the inside. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to run this back at some point. Yes, give me Masha and Jordan round 3. Like, oh, please let it happen. And hopefully it'll end up different this time because Masha has yet to beat Jordan for that title the 2 times she's fought for the championship last year. So who knows? Once Jordan is done with this Rosemary Wendy Chu business, Masha, I feel like, should be the next person to take it off of Jordan. And I would love to see Masha run with the Knockouts Championship, which would be fantastic. But this leads Masha to knock on the doors of Matt and Jeff Hardy. And then we get a little fun moment that Masha's like, hey, I want to thank you guys, for holding it down. Like, you are some of the greats. I love watching you. And Matt's like, I appreciate it, but we need to focus on our match tonight. And we need to show the system and the audience why TNA is the hottest product in wrestling right now. And that's how that little segment ends.
Something must be going on with me right now because I got all emotional in that scene.
Oh God, I'm just kidding.
I really did. I got teary-eyed. I was like, I don't know what's happening to me. I was like, I think I'm still reeling from CMLL, but I mean, it was. They were talking. I was like, "Oh, this is neat." She's like, "Oh, this little Russian girl," and I was like, "Oh, that's so neat." And then Matt Hardy started talking, and then all of a sudden I was just like choked up. I was just like, "Oh God!" And I was like tears in my eyes, and I was just like, "What is happening right now?" So I mean, it was a nice little moment. I really enjoyed it. I thought, "Oh, how sweet," And then I like how he's like, all of that's very important to us, but we need to focus on tonight and that, this, that, and then I was like, yeah, yeah. It was almost like mentoring. I mean, it was like, like it's like you meeting your idol or something, and they're telling you, you got it in you. Now focus and let's kick some ass. That's just so neat. I don't know. It just moved me. I was just, and again, like my husband always tells me, I cry at running water, but I literally got all choked up, and I was just like, oh my gosh, what is happening right now?
Aw. I love Papa also showing his emotions. Just kidding. That is something I'm going to rag on you for a while. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, here's the thing, and I think this is a good showcase because, as you know, not just for Masha, but for all of us, we have that similar story. It's just like we have this when I was a little kid. This was my introduction to wrestling, and then the memories that are associated with it. Now, granted, none of us are actual wrestlers, but we chose the avenue to decide to do this YouTube channel to review wrestling because we love and we have a passion for it. Masha chose to train, and homegirl is wrestling at the age of 25 and putting on bangers. Listen, I'm telling you, if y'all haven't seen GCW Homecoming, if you want to see the true extent of Masha's skill set, you watch her match against the giant of Galeno del Sol. Like, geez, Lord have mercy. Galeno del Sol is the son of Dr. Wagner Jr., and that man is like 7 feet tall, and little Masha Slamovich fighting him was fantastic. But I mean, again, sets up a really nice moment, and it sets up for what we're getting in our main event, which then leads us into finally our first match of the entire evening. So this was like a good 15 minutes before we got our first match. And you know what? I thought this was a lot of fun. We had First Class 2.0, which is AJ Francis, and until Rich Swann comes back from substance abuse, getting busted for substance abuse, we have Casey Navarro, who is just getting the bag. I am so happy that he's actually in this position and he gets to be showcased a lot more. So shout out to Casey Navarro. And they take on, because we have been asking, where has this team been since being signed to TNA like a month and a half, 2 months ago? And we have First Class taking on Sinner and Saint. So I thought this was a fun match. I wasn't too sure who was going to win. Now, obviously, I would love to see Sinner and Saint win because they are the new kids on the block. But it does make sense in this case that First Class did pick up the victory here with the down payment on, I believe it was Saint. Yeah, AJ Francis hitting the down payment on Saint to pick up the victory here. Will, how did you feel about First Class versus Sinner and Saint? I think I know where this is going.
Hated it. Hated the whole match. Hated it. Any match that has AJ Francis in them, I literally was like fast forwarding through it. I literally can't stand them. I can't even watch them. I literally am just like, nope. So I literally I skipped through it because I literally just can't. I think they're trash, and I just can't.
Damn. Tell us how you really feel.
I mean, it's like, and I mean, I don't know the performers themselves, but the characters are trash, and I don't even want to watch them. Like, truly, I just don't want to watch them. Anytime AJ Francis opens his mouth, I literally am like, I block it
out. And you know what? That is very fair. That is very fair. But again, First Class picks up the victory here. We shall see what is next with them. After this match, we go backstage where Mike Santana cuts a promo, which I really love, ahead of the Texas Death Match, where he promised to baptize JDC in his own blood. I'm like, that is a visceral line, and I'm kind of here for it. And then he says that, he's going to baptize JDC in his own blood because he and the system are locked up with Santana. I'm like, Liz, this is a big dog. Mike Santana is the big dog of the TNA prison yard. He is the HBIC. He is going to murderize you all over the place. And I'm like, I'm kind of here for it. Mike Santana is just thug incarnate, and I love it so much. And it's got me hyped for the Texas Death Match we were going to see later. We then get a promo with Gia Miller interviewing our new TNA X Division champion, Speedball Mike Bailey, after regaining the title from Zachary Wentz at Victory Road. And, he says, Mike Speedball says that, Zachary Wentz is that he needed to be the best for the best to be on top. And, he had some slip ups. And now that he's the X Division champion again, he's going to continue to be dominant in all of this. In which Gia tells Speedball, as well as the rest of the audience, that next week we are going to have what seems to be a very fun 6-man tag team match just because we can. It's going to be Speedball Mike Bailey teaming up with Leon Slater and Kushida, taking on the team of former X Division champion Zachary Wentz and ABC. And I'm just like, I'm sold. I'm here for it. This is like the core 6 for the X Division, if you will. Like, fantastic. So, Will, you didn't get a chance to review Victory Road with us, but you had a lot of feelings. How did you feel about Zachary Wentz losing his title back to Speedball so soon? Me and Andrew talked about why we think that was, but what are your feelings on that?
Well, it was surprising. I mean, it really was. I was very surprised that Mike Bailey won the title back so quickly after Wentz took it. I felt that, even though I'm not a huge fan of Zachary Wentz, but I mean, I've kind of been really kind of he's been growing on me, but I was just like, he just won that. And he had it for what, 3 weeks, 2 weeks?
Let's see. I want to say probably 2 weeks because he won it at Emergence, and then Victory Road was about 2 weeks later. So yeah, about 2 weeks.
About 2 weeks. I'm like, why in the world would you do that? So, I mean, y'all obviously have theories. I don't have a theory. I was a little disappointed that Mike Bailey won, and I love Mike Bailey, but I was a little disappointed that he won the title. And even in tonight's episode, I was kind of like, I don't think you should have that. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, good for you for winning it. Absolutely. But I was just like, it didn't feel right. That may sound weird, but watching Mike Bailey there with the belt on his shoulder, it didn't feel right. It was weird to me.
I mean, I could see where you're coming from for sure. So, well, this is mostly my theory, and Andrew kind of is like, yeah, I think I kind of agree with it. So the funny thing was, leading into this, so for Victory Road, this was the rematch we were getting, and so I was like, Speedball, we were all like, Speedball Mike Bailey lost the title at Emergence. It's kind of weird. Like, he won it off of Mustafa Ali, and he really hasn't had too long with this championship reign. Then Zach has it, and then he has it back. So here's why I think Zachary Wentz won the title, because I do everything here at BC WrestlePod. After Emergence, literally, Emergence happened, and then, a week later, we had Zach Wentz fight Wesley at NXT's No Mercy pay-per-view over Labor Day weekend. And so Zach had that X Division championship during his entrance, and he was introduced as the X Division champion. So I think that TNA gave Zach the title to take the title to be showcased in NXT. By the way, that match between him, Zachary Wentz, and Wesley at No Mercy, y'all need to go watch it. It's one of my favorite matches so far this year. Those two brought it. And then they're also about to have a street fight in a couple weeks on the CW premiere of NXT. It's about to get buck wild. But I think that's the reason why Zach won it, is so TNA can have that on NXT television. But I'm like, but then you should have let him have it for a couple weeks. But now Speedball has it. And so, I mean, technically, Zach has a rematch clause. We might get it again at Bound for Glory, which, hey, I'm not going to complain because Zach and, Speedball was the best match at Victory Road for me. Like, that was the best match of the whole entire card.
It was really good.
But yeah, I hate, and this is, and I get over it eventually, but I hate when companies like hot potato the titles. I'm like, it's supposed to be a championship. I'm not asking them to have like a Roman Reigns-esque like the championship reign of like 4 whole years. But like we barely had Zach be champion for 2 weeks, and now we hot potatoed back to Bailey. I'm like, I feel like it was not it wasn't good for both men. So I was like, it didn't help anyone in the process. Now, am I excited if we get this rematch at Bound for Glory? Oh, absolutely. Hell yeah. Because that match is going to slap. But let's not hot potato the championships, you guys. Let's just not. Please don't. I don't want it. Anyways, thank you for coming to our TED Talk. All righty. So then we get a digital exclusive because PCO is mad about everything that went down at Victory Road. And so Steph is consoling him. It's like, look, you will get your hands on Matt Cardona soon, but you've got to be patient. Shout out to Steph. We said it at Victory Road, but hopefully your next surgery goes very well. And we look forward to your return in TNA, which then leads us into, I guess we can call it a match, but not really. We have Matt Cardona always ready, taking on the Gore Master himself in Rhino. This match didn't last very long because Cardona attacked Rhino with the chair, ending in a DQ. PCO comes down to the ring and tries to hit the PCO salt on Matt Cardona, but Matt's just like, yeet, I'm out, bye, and retreats before anything else goes down. I'm like, please give me this match at Bound for Glory. This has to be a match that happens at Bound for Glory.
My God.
It's like, I'm just like, obviously Steph having to go away probably threw a wrench in like how we get to it, but I do think we're still heading towards PCO and Matt Cardona. So, I mean, I guess I could ask you for thoughts, but like, sure, why not?
I mean, it was like, we're really kind of seeing who Matt Cardona is like as a wrestler. We're seeing it. He's that, I'm gonna talk big, but then I'm gonna run away. And so when he and Rhino were fighting, and Rhino was whooping his ass. I mean, he was like tearing him up. And then then of course, Rhino, the minute he took the chair out and he slid it, and of course it hit Matt Cardona, so he was like, "Oh, I got it right here." So then he got in, turned his back, and that's when it all went downhill. And then the DQ happened, and then PCO, and of course, that was really cool. This is one of the things that I loved about it, is that the lights went out, and then PCO was literally right there in the ring. And I'm like, that is fantastic. I love that. I just loved it. And then I loved his attack on the chair. I was just like, okay, this match better be happening. Like, either if it doesn't happen soon, it better happen at the pay-per-view. It damn well better, because we need this. We need this finality. So yeah.
Yeah, so I'm excited regardless. I still think this feud can be a lot of fun, but I'm just like,
oh yeah,
all right. Honestly, and me and Andrew talked about this, we would actually kind of dig Matt Cardona having the titles for a little bit and then have PCO take it off. And now, obviously, that would have involved Steph, but I think a Matthew Cardona run in TNA would kind of be interesting because now he's a total turd, and like, I'd be here for it, honestly. But we'll see what happens. Who knows? But here we go. Now we get from, I guess, what we could call a match or whatever. And then, we have our newly crowned TNA Knockouts Tag Team Champion, Spitfire, come on out. And Ariana Grace, as the NXT liaison, comes out and congratulates Spitfire on being the tag champs. And then she mentions that they are going to be facing 2 NXT girls tonight. So we get Spitfire versus NXT's Carly Bright and Kendall Gray. And yeah, I thought this was a fun match. Now, obviously, Carly and Kendall are still fairly new to wrestling, so it was a lot of Danny Luna and Jody Threat kind of keeping up, but I just thought it was a fun match. Obviously, Spitfire wins. Will, what did you think of our tag team champs and actions against some of the NXT girls?
It was good. I mean, it wasn't. Of course, I'm a huge Spitfire fan, so I thought that no matter what, I was like, they're going to win this match. There's no way that the NXT folks are going to do it. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I thought the NXT folks did well. Again, though, I was like, there's no way that Spitfire is losing this match. But no, I thought it was a pretty good match. I mean, it was good. It wasn't horrible. I thought everybody held their own. And, this Spitfire was just better. Because I mean, the other two, they're pretty new, right?
Yeah, they're fair. Well, okay, I say new. They've been training for like a year, but they've just been on NXT television for maybe
Right.
less than 2-3 months. But yeah,
okay, so they're still green.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, I thought they held their own for being so green. So good for them. So I enjoyed the match.
I did too. I thought it was a lot of fun, and of course, again, now that Spitfire's the tag champs again, we need to start building. We need to find some challengers for them, because now it's just a team of one as of right now, because Alicia and Masha broke up, and so Alicia is not cleared yet. So Tasha Steelz is involved in the system storyline. So hopefully we get some challengers for Spitfire relatively soon, but we will find out, and we'll see what happens with all of that. So then, backstage, we see our newly signed knockout Heather Reckless go up to Ash by Elegance. We love Ash in this household. I do not care what anyone says. And basically, Heather's like, hey, so I got your card. I left a bunch of voicemails. I love how Ash and her concierge basically says it's like, we are above voicemails because we are elegant. I was like, so listening to a voicemail is not like elegant? All right, well, that's something new I learned. But Ash and her concierge agree that they would think about being, watching Heather Reckless's match with Zaya Brookside next week. So I'm like, I am here for an Ash by Elegance protege. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. So, Will, how do you feel about our girl taking the knockout under her wing?
I love it. I think it's I loved it. I was like, yay, huzzah. Let's get some connections going. I feel that she's been so isolated, sort of, I mean, on her own, she's sort of done that, but I love this kind of bringing her in and kind of making her part of the whole thing, as opposed to her being sort of on the outer fringes type of thing. I thought it was great. I love it. And the more I get to see her on my television, the better.
Oh, absolutely. Again, Ash by Elegance can do no wrong in this BC WrestlePod household. That's right. And shout out to her for being really cool and letting me interview her, and also signing a picture that Will has immortalized on his wall in his house for Will. That is the best $40 I have ever spent in my life. Yes, it's fantastic. Mm-hmm. All right, strap in, Will, because now we get to probably... outside of the main event, this ended up being a really, really fun match. And almost at this point, I was like, this might be my match of the night, just because I'm a sick little freak. Because we enter our Texas death match. We have JDC versus Mike Santana. And for those of you who are not aware of how a Texas death match works, you just certainly do not win with just a pin. You have to pin your opponent, and they can, and you have to make sure that they do not beat the 10 count afterwards. So if once you pin them, if the person you pinned is not able to stand on their feet to buy the 10 count, then you ultimately win. This match was everything that I wanted, and shout out to TNA for using the very small space of the arena to make it seem like we were doing various levels of where we were at in the arena. We had chairs in the ring. We had a bat wrapped in barbed wire, which caused JDC to bleed profusely. We had barricades. Barry the Barricade was used as a weapon. We had people falling on concrete floors. Mike Santana was just like, I'm about to flip off this into a table with JDC below, but let's just make it extra spicy. He gets a whole 8-foot ladder, gets on top of that thing. There were a few moments where I thought that thing was going to tip over. And then Mike Santana goes down for a frog splash, pinning JDC and getting the win. Before we talk about what happens post-match, Will, how did we feel about this Texas death match between JDC and Mike Santana?
This match was insane. I mean, it started out kind of but then once they started like implementing like chairs and bats with barbed wire and various other areas of the arena, it got really, really good. I mean, of course I was like, okay, all right, it's a death match. Okay, it's kind of, and then first blood was drawn, and I was like, okay, now here we go. So, and then from that point on, it was like, I was like in adrenaline. I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then the crazy stuff they were doing, I was just like, and like that finisher at the end. I'm sorry, when he went up that ladder, I literally, my stomach hurt, and I was like, because I swear I thought he was gonna do some kind of flip somersault, crazy maneuver off that ladder onto that table, but he just did the frog, but the frog splash. But I thought he was gonna do something insane, and I was literally thought I was gonna throw up. But it was so good. And it was so good. I mean, just the sheer brutality of it. And you could see the blood like dripping off of JDC. I mean, it was running because there was at one point where he wiped his forehead and just ran. And when he was down, it was just like gushing almost. I was like, dude has a gushing head wound. And they're still fighting. It's just like, and of course I was thinking, ew, I'd hate to be the person who has to clean all that up, because that was a lot of blood everywhere. I was just like, and I love how the referee suddenly showed up with gloves on, but it was so funny.
It's like, I ain't trying to get that all up on me.
I'm like, it's splattering everywhere. How do you not have it on you? I was just like, every time JDC turned his head, it was like there's like blood splatter everywhere. I was just like,
Alfred Hitchcock would be proud.
Yeah, seriously. But yeah, it was so good. It was so good. And I agree. It was almost my match of the night. It really was. It was a really good match. It was so good. I loved every minute of it. But my match of the night's coming.
Yeah, we'll talk about it when we get to our main event. But at this point of the show,
yeah, this was number one at this point.
So, okay. So for those of you who have been watching BC WrestlePod for the last like week and a half, 2 weeks, you know that we have covered two different deaths type of matches from AEW. We had Willow and Chris Statlander in their Chicago street fight, and then we had Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page in his lights out steel cage match, where, and viewer discretion is advised because I'm about to recap some of the things that happened in that steel cage match, where we had staples to people's chests, like a staple gun got used. There was a cinder block. But the worst thing was that syringe in Swerve Strickland's mouth.
Ew, yeah.
And then the unprotected chair shot with it was kind of nuts. So I like that TNA was still able to satiate for doing that. But then we continue to perpetuate the story that we've been working on for the last couple weeks, and it's probably going to end up in some sort of crazy stipulation match at Bound for Glory. But Moose comes out with the chair and beats the hell out of Mike Santana on top of like the stage that, you know, they had up there. So I'm pretty sure we're getting a match between these two at Bound for Glory because Mike Santana has already worked through JDC. He technically has beaten Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards in the past. So Moose is the only person left on his hit list. So I need this. Look, I know, like, I say this all the time, and Andrew and Will laugh at me for this, but give me a Monsters Ball match between these two, and I am here for it. Like, Moose does really well in Monster Balls match. We always usually have one at Bound for Glory. Last year, we had that fatal 4-way Monsters Ball match with Smacklin, PCO, Rhino, and Moose. So let's do Moose and, you know, Mike Santana either in Full Metal Mayhem or a Monsters Ball match. But we need to have something crazy happen at Bound for Glory. Again, I'm a sick little freak, and I love it. So then after the Texas Death match, we see Sinner and Saint backstage, and we were talking about this. Josh Alexander's plotting you guys because he comes up, he talks to Sinner and says, like, hey guys, it was a tough loss out there, but it's okay. This is just a minor setback. You know, you take the good with the bad, and you got to get out there and you got to grind. And if you ever need any help or have any questions about how to do so, you guys are welcome to come to me. Like, Alexander is playing the role of the locker room leader with our new tag team. And I'm like, the plot thickens, Will. The plot thickens. The seeds are starting to be planted. I'm really hoping this is a ruse because this would be amazing. So I love when things just come together and, you know, we get to see a continuing storyline in one show. Thank you so much. I'm excited. I can't wait. But speaking of things I also can't wait on, we got another vignette. This time we get the full reveal. Next week in TNA, we get the debut of Li Weng Li, formerly known as Zaya Lee from WWE and NXT, and she will be in the house making her TNA debut. And I'm like, yes, martial artist, let's go. Look, I don't think I love WWE and NXT, but I don't think they use Zaya to her full potential. So I'm hoping that TNA does better with her, and I'm super excited for Miss Lee to make her way. Listen, I'm here for femme fatale, like Chinese martial arts warrior assassin vibes that she's going with. And I love the little vignette when she says, she's like, through, you know, being through the rebirth of the fire, I will forge my way there. And I'm basically going to kick all the ass. I'm like, yes, I'm here for it. And we've been saying this. We need more knockouts in the division.
Yes. My God, do we ever?
I'm so excited. I'm interested to see who our first opponent will be, but I am here for Miss Lee for her debut next week. And then my dish is ready because then Joe Hendry came out and cut a promo. And like, listen, I know people are like, yeah, I love Joe Hendry. It's like, no, me, Will, and Andrew have been following this man for a very long time. We lived through the beautiful times that was Joya, to the sadness when they broke up, when Peace and Fire backfired, and then we see this man, and then we had to live through him losing all the time in TNA after the breakup of Joya. But Joe Hendry is finally here. He beat Josh Alexander in Victory Road, and he talks about how the audience will lift him up, and he's ready to take on Nick Nemeth for this title. And I was like, yes, Joe Hendry, I love you. I believe in you. And then my world came crashing down because fucking Frankie Kazarian came out. I'm like, God damn it. I was like, we were having a moment, Frankie, and you ruined it, which you're doing your job, by the way. So we hate the character. The person's really nice, and we love Frankie, the person. His character is kind of an asshole, but that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to hate it. But Frank, the king of TNA himself, Frankie Kazarian, comes out and ruins the moment. I was so pissed off. I was like, I was having a moment with our guy, man. Joe Hendry has finally gotten to where we wanted him for the last year and a half, and you ruined it, Frankie. So Frankie basically is being a heel in all of this, right? And so then he ends up saying, it's like, no, Joe Hendry, you don't deserve a title shot. I do. So if Nick Nemeth was the man that he says he is, he's going to come out here and he's going to give me this title shot. And then, of course, we get the proverbial, oh my God, as Nick Nemeth's music hits. And I was just like, this is the most like sexual theme song entrance ever. Because it's literally, oh my God. And then the zipper, I was like, what is happening? Who came up with this? I'm kind of here for it though. But Nick Nemeth comes out. Okay, so I gotta laugh at this. I don't know about you, Will, but I gotta laugh at this because Nick Nemeth comes up, tells Frankie Kazarian to shut up. I was like, yes, Nick Nemeth, you tell him. And then he turns to Joe Hendry. Is just like, you are impressive, kid. I'm like, I believe Joe Hendry is older than you, Nick Nemeth, but that's besides the point. And he's just like, you know what? And before Nick could say anything, Santino comes out and says, look, everyone has made compelling arguments to face Nick Nemeth. I'm like, did we, Santino?
I know, really?
I was like, Joe Hendry, yes, he beat Josh Alexander. Josh is like at the top of the food chain in TNA, so that totally merits. But what has Frankie done within the last couple of weeks or the last couple of months to warrant him having a match? But you know what? Santino's like, hey, next week, we're going to have a number one contenders match. Frankie Kazarian versus Joe Hendry. Winner will go on to face Nick Nemeth in the main event of Bound for Glory. And as soon as that main event got dropped, I was like, please, wrestling gods and TNA booking for all that is holy, please let Joe Hendry win this thing. I want to see Joe Hendry finally main event a TNA pay-per-view. It is long overdue. I don't think he's going to win the title here, but let Joe Hendry main event and prove why he's a main event star. And I was just like, I swear to God, if TNA lets Frankie Kazarian win, I may have to distance myself from TNA for a week. I'm going to go cry, eat a tub of ice cream like it's a bad breakup between me and TNA. I know I'm dramatic AF, but
no, but I agree.
The iron is hot with Joe Hendry. Strike when it's now. Let him main event Bound for Glory. But anyways, now that I'm done yelling and screaming into the ether, Will, how do we feel about Joe Hendry's promo? Frankie Kazarian come out and what sets up for a match next week, which could probably be our main event for next week.
I enjoyed it. Of course, anytime Joe Hendry's on my screen, I am like a fangirl. I think, and then of course, Kaz, as they call him, when his music popped, I was like, oh, good Lord, what now, dude? We get it. You're pissed and no one's letting you have the opportunity to fight a champion. Okay, we get it. Stop whining. And every time I see Frank Kazarian now, I just look at him and go, how did you come to this? I was just like, I just look at it, the new look, and he's just like a douchebag, and I'm just like, who hurt you, dude? I mean, who hurt you? Because I don't even understand what's going on here. So then he comes in, and then he's trying to be funny, ha guy, and it was just like, okay. Then of course we get the zip noise and the oh my God, and I'm like, ew. It's like, and then Nick comes in, and then I did love when he's like, first of all, I need you to shut your mouth. I was like, yes. And then I thought it was hilarious when he went, kid, you got something. And I'm like, kid? And it was funny to watch Joe's face. Joe was like, what? And then I was like, okay. And then, then Santino suddenly came out and was like, well, you got you all this, that, and the other. And I was like, but no one's really made a pitch. I mean, Joe Hendry was like getting to it. And then Kazarian interrupted him and just said, if anyone deserves a run, it's me. but he had never heard him actually challenge Nick. You know, like I challenge you or anything of that nature. And then Nick came out and it was like, meh, 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 meh. And then Santino, okay, well, we're gonna put you guys against each other. So I am also in that same boat that if Frankie Kazarian wins that match, I'm gonna be so pissed.
I'm just like
so pissed.
I know, but now I can never I can never not imagine Nick Nemeth as a Muppet as like Beaker's like me.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, long blonde hair Beaker. I see what you up to. Like, yeah. Oh my goodness. But I'm excited. TNA, excuse my French, but don't fuck it up. Let Joe Hendry win. But we shall see. I will be holding my breath until I get that official 3 count at the end of that match, which then leads into the glorious, our favorite match of the whole entire night. This was the main event because this was just pure fun, spectacle, camp, fun wrestling. But we have Masha Slamovich teaming up with Jeff and Matt Hardy. Jeff Hardy paying tribute to Bray Wyatt with the face makeup, which we love to see. And they were taking on the team of the Boricua badass Tasha Steelz, teaming up with your TNA World Tag Team Champions, the System of Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers. There's not enough words in the English language to describe like how much joy this match brought to my face, and I could not stop smiling from bell to bell because this was just fun. Well, like this was great. It was fun. Like everyone got their thing. There was also like dramatics on the outside. Alicia Edwards getting involved, her getting thrown out. ABC like doing like a vaudevillian like skit, like picking her up from the arms because she's so short, and her running in place as they're carrying her up. Like Masha kicking all the ass, Tasha kicking all the ass. Look, the men were cool and everything, but Masha and Tasha were kicking all the ass in this match. And what made this match more fun for me too is that the women got in the faces and like put their hands on the men too. I was like, yes, equal rights, equal fights. I'm here for this. Ultimately, Masha and the Hardys do pick up the victory. I was like, yes, Masha gets a big win here. But Will, this was our main event. How did we feel about this, and what about this match made this your match of the night?
The sheer chaos of it. It was so like there was a point there where all the rules were just kind of thrown out the door, and they were everywhere. I mean, it was like I didn't know who was tagged in and who wasn't, and they were just fighting. But I loved that Masha and Tasha were just like, I mean, they were just destroying. And then, yeah, absolutely. When it was guys versus girls, I mean, it was so good. And then them, you know, and I was really impressed with the Hardys and Masha, their team, because they were super on point. Like truly, they were working together. They were doing their. I mean, it was great, and I thought the system was a little sloppy, you know, in this fight, which I really enjoyed because you know, anytime I can see the system get their asses handed to them, I am like yes, and yeah, and then it just happened, and I was just like, I mean, my brain was just exploding. And then, then suddenly I was like, then Masha and the Hardys won. And I was like, yeah! Mainly because I was so excited for Masha, you know, getting that victory over Tasha. So, yeah, it just the whole match was like so. I didn't skip any of it. I didn't do any. I literally was just like glued to it. It was so good. So that's why it was oh my God. Yeah. It was my match of the night. Hands down.
Oh, absolutely. And this was a fun way to end this episode of TNA, which then leads us into our empanada rating. So we've reached the end of this week's TNA episode. So, you know, I originally had this like at a 7 for me, but going through and revisiting this episode with one of my favorite peoples on the planet, and, you know, just talking about how much fun I actually had, I think I'm going to bump this up to like a solid 7.5 out of 10 empanadas. I still had some issues with it. Like, not to say that anything was inherently bad, but I was just like, I was kind of bummed out. I was like, Frankie really hasn't done anything to warrant him being a. Now,
Contender.
I will say, contender. I will say now, if we wanted to have a match between Hendry and Kaz, just cause makes sense. You could play off of like what happened at the Battle Royale in NXT, in which Joe Hendry got eliminated like in 5 seconds by Kaz as soon as he entered. Then we could have done that. But Frankie hasn't done anything to do number one contendership. Hell, if I'm gonna be honest, if we're looking at the field, like obviously they wouldn't because they were on the same team, but like it would have made sense of maybe like Joe and Mike Santana, because Mike has had more wins than Joe Hendry. Or, you know, even though Moose had just lost, like technically, actually, Moose probably has a better shot at wanting this rematch against Nick Nemeth, and we'll go through it because Moose does have more wins than Frankie. But I still give this a 7.5. I thought there was a lot of fun matches. I really enjoyed the pivot that Masha has understood Alicia and speaks perfect English this whole entire time. It's very similar to the Kofi Kingston, like all those years ago when he dropped the Jamaican accent. And then it was like, oh yeah, I'm just a regular dude from America. It's fantastic. But I give this a solid 7.5, and I'm excited for next week. And we have officially begun the road to Bound for Glory. So, Will, how many empanadas do you give this week's TNA?
It was a 7.5 for me as well. Could have been an 8, but AJ Francis was on my screen, so that knocked it down to a 7.5. But other than that, I thought it was pretty decent. I thought it was solid. I thought it was a solid episode. It had its moment, the whole Kazarian getting involved in the contendership, and I mean, and then AJ Francis and Alicia Edwards talking at the beginning, and kind of brought it down a bit. But overall, I enjoyed it. I really did. It wasn't like oh God, I have to watch the rest of this. It was like, oh, okay, let's see what happens next. Let's see what happens next.
Absolutely.
You got a question on YouTube too.
I do. So I'm gonna show this. So wrestling related, but not necessarily TNA, but also kind of related because TNA works with other folks. So David, shout out to David. Him and some other homies have been popping in for the last couple weeks. Love it. How do you feel about ROH becoming the top wrestling company in the world? So okay, so David, I don't mean to be the bad guy here, but I'm just let you know right now, right? So I tend to agree with you to a certain extent. I think ROH has the potential to be the top wrestling company in the world because they have some phenomenal talent. Obviously, you have Athena, who is the longest reigning women's champion in ROH history. And she is just 6 days away from breaking the record to be the longest reigning ROH champ, period, regardless of man or woman, at like 692 days. She's fantastic. You got Billy Starks, Red Velvet, Queen Aminata, Mark Briscoe, Serpentico. You have a whole bunch of talent in ROH, and they're fantastic. What's holding ROH back right now is that the in-ring wrestling and the talent's fantastic, but they are struggling in the storylines and feuds because it is literally just scraps of whoever's available to do these tapings. So I think if ROH invests in storylines like they did last year and during the first year of this rebrand for Ring of Honor, I think they will definitely probably be one of the best companies out there. Of course, I'm biased because I also love TNA, and I say that TNA is the best company in the world. But I think ROH has the potential to be up there if they can get through some storylines and some feuds, because right now we're just watching wrestling to watch wrestling, which is fine, but this is wrestling entertainment. I want to be entertained with the dramatics of it all and the storytelling. So ROH needs to get back to what they did last year by having some feuds and stories, and then we can go from there. If you check out our ROH reviews the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months have been the same. It's like matches were good, but I want feuds and stories. So hope that helps, David. I appreciate you being here. And that does bring us, unfortunately, to the end of this week's Takedown Troupe review. The road to Bound for Glory has officially started, and we are 5 weeks away from the final Big Four pay-per-view for TNA in 2024. and myself and Will here, as well as Andrew, because he is coming back for Bound for Glory watch along and the review. We are super excited to see what matches get made for TNA. So this is going to be fantastic. But that's going to be it for us this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. And for myself, Will, Andrew, and the rest of the BC WrestlePod family, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay biconic, but more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. You can catch us next week for another TNA review. But until then, sayonara, adios, and we'll catch you later.